This is Brian Lehrer Live, where web video meets the issues. We'll meet many issues tonight, but let's begin in Haiti, where millions remain homeless after January's terrible earthquake. This first video is from Shelterbox, a British-based charity that provides emergency shelter and more. They do it brilliantly. Into one compact green plastic container, they pack in all the basics a large family needs when they are suddenly homeless from a natural disaster or war. More than 1,500 of these boxes have already reached Haiti. That's shelter for 15,000 people. Shelterbox has done the same in 80 countries. Tom Henderson, the founder, hosts their video.
I really came from the idea that what would I need for my family in a disaster? Imagine a situation where you've lost everything and a green box arrives. Contents of the box are very simple things, but make a huge change in a disaster. Waterproof ground sheets, blankets. We have a 10-person tent. We've designed ourselves enough for an extended family of 10 people. Cooking pots and pans, and knife, forks and spoons. A cooker. We have a water purification system. We have a toolkit. So basically a life-saving, life-changing inventory. Very basic stuff, but very essential stuff.
Shelter, warmth, and dignity in a box. It's an idea that Rotary International has adopted as a project. If you want to learn more and perhaps help out, there's a link on our website, brianlehrer.tv. Also on the program tonight, copy right, copy wrong. Currently, behind closed doors, international negotiators are working on a treaty that clamps down on digital piracy. It's triggering a battle between content owners and internet activists. We'll have a skirmish right here, and we'll meet the free culture filmmaker who's behind animation like this.
Copying is not theft. Stealing a thing leaves one less left. Copying it makes one thing more. That's what copying's for.
Filmmaker Nina Paley later on. We'll also see some pictures that move in a different way when we visit the website 20 by 200, where the internet is now making it possible for great artists to sell to the unrich like us. But to begin, counterfeiting in the digital age. It's a huge problem, and not just for the music and movie industries. Domestic intellectual property worth an estimated $5 trillion floats out there on the net, vulnerable to piracy. Right now, behind closed doors, 14 countries, including ours, are hammering out ACTA, the Anti-Counterfeiting Trade Agreement. Some of the proposals have leaked out. Opponents fear the new rules might empower internet service providers to ban people from the internet altogether just for downloading the wrong thing. With us to discuss the implications of ACTA are Jonathan Reichman, an intellectual property attorney with Kenyon & Kenyon here in New York. Via Skype, Michael Geist, University of Ottawa Research Chair in Internet E-Commerce and Law. Also on a phone with us from Washington, D.C., Mark Esper from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Global Intellectual Property Center. Welcome, all of you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Reichman, you represent clients on either side of this issue,
That's correct,
depending on the case. So tell us, what is intellectual property, and why should our viewers care?
Okay, well, intellectual property is what it sounds like. It's property, namely something you possess, but it's the product of your mind, of your creation. You know, if you buy a book or a shirt or a pair of shoes, you own that physical thing. Well, intellectual property is different. It's not tangible in the same way that a shoe or a lunchbox is. It's the product of things that people have created, either inventions like pharmaceuticals or songs, novels, poems, symphonies. It's created out of the mind, so it's considered intangible, but yet the law protects it in the same way, and that the person who creates it gets to own it exclusively and to stop others from using it without permission.
Michael Geist, what is ACTA, and why are you against it?
Well, ACTA is the Anti-Counterfeiting Trade Agreement, as you mentioned a moment ago, and it dates back a couple of years now, where a small number of countries, 14 if you include the European Union as one country, but we're closer to 40 if you include all the constituent members, decided that they were going to leave the traditional place to negotiate these kinds of agreements, which is the United Nations through the World Intellectual Property Organization. That's where we traditionally negotiate these kinds of deals. And what they've done instead is go ahead and try to negotiate a similar kind of deal, but as you mentioned, do it behind closed doors with just very, very little transparency. So little transparency that we're now seeing elected officials around the world. These are the people we elect, politicians from governments everywhere, saying, hold on a second, what is my own government doing? It's time to open this up.
So something is leaking out, apparently, from the ACTA talks. What are you hearing, and why does it concern you?
Well, there is a fair amount of information that is leaking. That's one of the ironies here. The harder that governments try to keep it secret, the more information it seems that leaks out. And I think the real concern is that if we were dealing genuinely with counterfeiting, the health and safety issues that arise from counterfeiting, I don't think there's anybody that's against that. The concern here is that while there are counterfeiting provisions, the core, the guts of this is actually a copyright treaty. And I think many countries take a look at these issues from a similar perspective in terms of wanting to ensure an appropriate level of protection and striking the right kind of balance, but they do it in different kinds of ways. And what ACTA seeks to do, I think, in many ways, is renegotiate international treaties that have been in place now for 10, 15 years, and they create a lot of limitations in terms of the kind of flexibility and the way these rules might get interpreted in many different countries.
Mark Esper, what is ACTA from your point of view, and why are you for it?
Well, ACTA is a very important agreement among these 30 to 40 or so countries to protect intellectual property. And I think as you spoke about in your lead-in, intellectual property, at least to the United States, is worth well over $5 trillion. It employs over 18 million Americans. And so it's very critical to job creation in the United States and to our own economic growth. So protecting intellectual property is critical to not only saving jobs but also protecting consumers. And the more we can improve coordination and cooperation between some of some of our key trading partners, the better we are as a country, and the better we are from the works that come from people who produce goods and other intellectual property products.
What's this really about, Jonathan? I mean, one of our guests said that the traditional copyright battle is about health and safety, but really it's about money, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's about industries that employ millions of people that are invested in bringing to the public products that span a wide variety, a wide spectrum of industries and interests, and being able to protect those from what's become a huge piracy problem. With the explosion of the internet, the world is really changing. The ability for the owner of a movie or a TV show to govern the way that product is rolled out, to protect an enormous investment that, again, employs large numbers of people. It's really under siege in this internet age. And this treaty, I think, is a very, very carefully thought out way to address that on a global level.
Well, we don't know what it is yet, at least this version of it, because apparently it's being negotiated behind closed doors. But Michael Geist, counterfeiting a movie or a book, let's say, is a bad thing, right?
Right, but let's separate out counterfeiting from copyright. So just a couple clarifications. When we're talking about counterfeiting, that's where some of those health and safety issues do arise. Fake pharmaceuticals, unsafe toys, everybody agrees that we ought to be able to deal with those kinds of issues.
Right, but it's not counterfeiting when you make a copy of somebody else's movie and sell it for your own profit?
It is active piracy, commercial piracy, where people do that. But a lot of even what your guest just referenced doesn't involve commercial infringement. It involves non-commercial infringement. And even if we do agree that we want to take steps to deal with that, it's not clear that ACTA is going to make all that much difference, because the real cases of commercial piracy, the places where people are burning DVDs for sale out on street corners, the U.S. government and other governments consistently point to countries like China, the Ukraine, Russia. None of those countries are at the table. In fact, they've been actively excluded. So we've got a deal that supposedly deals with counterfeiting, yet doesn't include any of the kinds of countries that you'd expect to be at the table.
But I don't think you're
serious about dealing with these issues.
I don't think you're here representing China or Ukraine. So who are you most concerned about getting hurt if a tough ACTA gets enacted?
I'm most concerned with the domestic choices that happen in my country and many other countries.
By whom? About what? By whom? About what?
Well, with respect to copyright rules, Canada is currently engaged in a copyright reform process, and there are a range of different issues, both that try to strike the appropriate balance between, on the one hand, ensuring appropriate levels of protection, and at the same time ensuring that there is the flexibility that exists with fair use and the like, so that people have the ability to express themselves online, to be able to use the very products they purchase in appropriate ways. Here in Canada, and even in other countries, the mere act of purchasing a DVD and trying to make a backup copy so that my kids can watch it on their video iPod, or my 5-year-old doesn't go ahead and scratch it, those become acts of infringement. And I think that if we're serious about striking a balanced law, as the United States government itself told the United Nations just in December it thinks is important, then we've got to ensure that we address both of those issues. And it's hard to do that when all this is taking place in the dark, in secret locations, and it's hard to do when there isn't the kind of public input to ensure both perspectives are brought to the table.
Mark Esper, is that what this is about from your perspective, that somebody's kids shouldn't be able to download a creative, a movie or a piece of music and make a copy to make sure that the original doesn't get scratched or lost or corrupted, and those people might be put in jail or barred from the internet?
No, not at all. I mean, this is about what was said previously about industries that are very dependent on intellectual property rights that are seeing huge losses that have been accelerated by the explosion of the internet. And what we found from folks who are opposed to ACTA and other folks who are opposed to IP rights in general are some of these same arguments you're hearing tonight, that it's going to cover individual goods, that we're negotiating a new treaty, which is not the case. It's an executive agreement, that somehow it's going to change the law, which is not something that is proposed or something that we would support, that it is something that takes these agreements in completely different directions. Look, the other argument is, for some reason, because we're not, China isn't participating in these talks, China where a great deal of counterfeiting and piracy comes, that these talks are not worthwhile in terms of raising the bar of IP protections. Look, you never write the law and try and improve enforcement by inviting the criminals in to tell us what they'll accept and what they won't.
But China's a country. The criminals are individuals. China's 1 billion people represented by a government, right?
That's right. And China, like most other countries, have already signed on to the World Intellectual Property treaties that have been already spoken to. So the key with China is improving their enforcement, which is something the United States and our other trading partners work very closely with the Chinese on. But in the meantime, it's critical that countries such as the United States, those members of the European Union, Canada, Japan, Australia, others who are sharing goods, work together to improve their own cooperation, to improve their own coordination, to harmonize their enforcement procedures so that we at least can deal with like-minded partners, deal with this issue more effectively.
Jonathan Reichman, you told me off the air that you think China is going to gradually move from having its interest with the pirates to having its interest with the enforcers.
Yeah, I think one of the potential long-term benefits of this agreement is that as countries like China become more invested in creating works of intellectual property as opposed to using or pirating them, that long-term they will see the advantages of signing on to treaties like this. And one of the nice things about this is it will be a framework, a built-in framework that then other countries can sign on to.
Real quick, Michael, this concern that people might be barred from the internet, the entire internet, for downloading the wrong thing, where does that come from?
That comes from a number of countries that have adopted what's known as a 3 strikes and you're out approach, where 3 notifications, 3 allegations of infringement are enough to kick someone off the internet, kick off their entire family for upwards of a year.
Just for downloading something?
Just based on an allegation of infringement, nothing proven necessarily, no court oversight necessarily. In some places, the talk is merely on the basis of 3 allegations of infringement, lose access. And
what's one of those countries?
France has put it into place. New Zealand is talking about it. The UK is talking about it. It strikes many as incredibly disproportionate. And the prospect that that could be promoted as part of an ACTA, I think, is a very real possibility.
Have you ever had a case like this?
No, these are foreign systems, but let me just say that
But that's what ACTA is being discussed, foreign system. The whole point is that you're trying to bring many of these foreign, not you, but ACTA is trying to bring many of these foreign countries up to certain standards. To say that it doesn't exist in the United States, in part, that's the point. ACTA seeks to try to bring this, and as you said yourself, create an international standard.
All right, let me just make two comments in response to that. One is that in my area where I'm litigating private lawsuits, charges have to be brought, a lawsuit has to be initiated by the copyright owner. And there's no incentive for copyright owners to really be too onerous on individual consumers.
So, Mark Esper, do you want a law like that in the United States under an international agreement?
Well, we already have a law in the United States that follows international treaties. The ACTA agreement does not propose to change law whatsoever, and we're all in favor of raising standards so we can protect intellectual property.
Is that a yes or a no?
That's a non-answer.
You asked me whether we support a change in law, and I'm telling you no.
So you wouldn't support a law that would allow the banning, as happens in France, apparently, of people who download things they're not supposed to download 3 times. You're not for that at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, correct?
We are not for that. We think there are private sector ways to reach similar ends to protect copyrights, but also strike a right balance between consumers as well.
Well, we're definitely guilty of 3 strikes here, so we are out. And we thank all of you for joining us. An important debate, and not one that many people in this country actually know about. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is Brian Lehrer Live, where web video meets the issues. Here are this week's online video picks. Video 1 is part of a lively 5-minute data visualization by the workforce management company Kronos Inc. It teaches us many things, including how 4 generations are working side by side in the workplace for the first time, that 26% of workers speak a second language, and 40% could do their jobs at home. And in the last minute of the video, which we're about to see, we discover how stressed and litigious the workforce is. Could actually dance to that data. Here's another data visualization video about the economy. This is from the politically progressive Good magazine. The topic is modern retail, how we buyers are increasing our power by sharing information, and how retailers are adapting. Now video pick number 3. As you know, the reclusive writer J.D. Salinger died on January 27th. He never let Hollywood make a movie of his classic coming-of-age novel, Catcher in the Rye. Maybe he should have, if just to prevent the YouTube generation from making really bad versions. This mashup is from Slate.com.
The first thing you'd probably want to know is where I was born, what my lousy childhood was like.
And all that David Copperfield kind of crap. It bores me if you want to know the truth.
I'll just tell you about this madman stuff that happened to me around last Christmas, just before I got pretty run down. Had to come out here and take it easy.
I never knew that everything was falling through.
Where do you think the ducks go in the winter in Central Park?
Who cares?
During my antics, I went to the park to look for the ducks, but they were gone. Oh God, it's just so depressing. Ducks are phony.
Ding. Hey, man.
Today, I bought a hooker from an elevator pimp.
Want a prostitute for $5?
It's 5 foot throw, 10 for the night.
Yeah, sure, I'll take that.
Ding.
I want a girl with a short skirt and a long jacket.
Are any of those guys the way you always pictured Holden Caulfield? Now, J.D. Salinger died within hours of the alternative historian Howard Zinn, renowned for his book A People's History of the United States. A group called First Run Features NYC made this video featuring Howard Zinn, in his own words, talking about his experience as a fighter pilot in World War II.
The war actually in Europe was about over. It was a few weeks from being over and everybody knew it. But we all awakened in the middle of the night and they told us we were going to bomb this little town in France because there were several thousand German soldiers around the town. They weren't doing anything, weren't bothering anyone, they were just waiting for the war to end, but we were going to go over and bomb them. Now, the one odd thing about it, they told us we were not going to carry the usual demolition bombs, 500-pound demolition bombs. We were going to carry instead 30 canisters, 100-pound canisters of jellied gasoline. That's what it was called. Of course, later I learned this was napalm, the first use of napalm in the European theater. And you know, when you're bombing from 30,000 feet, you don't hear anything, you don't see anything, you don't know what's happening to people down there. You don't hear people screaming, you don't see blood, you don't see mangled limbs, none of that. Several thousand people were killed. Germans were killed, French were killed, and it wasn't until really after the war, maybe after I learned about Hiroshima and Nagasaki and began to think about bombing and began to question the total goodness of the good war. Only then did I go think about Royan and that bombing.
During the Vietnam War, many Americans spoke against our use of napalm, none so passionately as Howard Zinn, maybe in part because of those experiences in World War II. Finally tonight, an answer to that macho Dodge Charger commercial that ran during the Super Bowl, the one with the man lying on his pillow thinking about how his car was his compensation for having to put up with his boss, his wife being told to eat fruit, and his mother-in-law? Well, here's the feminist retort from Mackenzie Fagan.
I will get up and pack your lunch at 6:30 a.m. I will eat half a grapefruit for breakfast. I will get the kids ready for school. I will ignore your smelly loser friend who is crashing on our couch. I will make 75 cents for every dollar you make doing the same job. I will assert myself and get called a bitch. I will catch you staring at my breasts, but pretend not to notice. I will put my career on hold to raise your children. I will diet, Botox, and wax. Everything. I will assure you that size doesn't matter. I will be a lady in the street, but a freak in the bed. I will turn a blind eye to your ever-encroaching baldness. I will humor your fantasy baseball obsession. I will pretend not to notice when you cry at the end of Rudy. I will watch TV shows where fat, stupid, unattractive men have beautiful wives. I will allow you to cheat on me with younger women. I will see Paul Blart Mall Cop twice. I will elect male politicians who will make decisions about my body. I will listen to Rush and tell you, yes, if there were a gold medal for air drumming, you would win it. I will get angry and you will ask if it's that time of the month. I will watch Super Bowl commercials that depict men as emasculated and oppressed, and I will feel...
We are stopping this video before she gets to the F word. We get it. And those are this week's online video picks. This is Brian Lehrer Live, where web video meets the issues. Earlier we talked about piracy and counterfeiting on the web. Now we take up the issue of copyright. Let's begin by taking a look at a trailer for an animated movie that you may have heard about or seen, Sita Sings the Blues. It's getting buzz not just for its quality and originality, but for the way it's being distributed for free on the web. All right, we're having a little bit of trouble getting that video to roll online. We will get it right. But if you'd like to see more of Sita Sings the Blues, you are totally in luck. The filmmaker, Nina Paley, has made the movie available in its entirety on the web for free. You can even burn it to a DVD. Paley chose to share her work that way because fights over the rights to the songs in the movie turned her into a free culture activist. She is now the artist in residence at the copyright reform organization questioncopyright.org. And with us as well is Carl Fogel, an open source software developer and the founder of questioncopyright.org. Now I think we can see a little bit of that film. Let's try again.
What a beautiful golden deer. Oh, Rama, won't you capture it for me?
All right, now folks, this is live television, and something just happened around the airing of that might represent one of the issues that this conversation is going to be about. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hey, so Nina, that was the wrong trailer that we were streaming live from the web?
Yeah, it's a fine trailer, but that was the old version of the trailer, and there are many copies of a much more recent version of the trailer.
And you were a little upset that we wound up showing that version. Does that kind of misrepresent your work in a way that you're not happy about?
No. I mean, it's fine, and that's like a consequence of, I know that once I put something up there, it's there forever. But the thing that surprised me was that it was streaming off of YouTube rather than being downloaded in advance, where you wouldn't have those. I mean, I wouldn't trust the internet to work
in live TV.
Live TV.
It always goes down during the demo, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of faith.
But is there an issue of free culture here, ironically? Because, if you're just going to let free culture make copies and spread things as it will, then work may get out that may not really represent you the way you want to be represented, and millions of people might see it.
Yeah, I'm perfectly happy to be represented that way. There's a better version out there. It's sort of like if somebody is running, a really old version of Linux when there's all these updates that happen and they could be running a much better one. But, that's just what happens, and it's fine.
Right. And so tell us a little bit more about your story. And by the way, I guess this just shows how nimble we are. We can show things live from the internet as we find them 5 minutes before the show, whatever. But your movie is a retelling of the classic Hindi myth, the Ramayana, set to the jazz songs of 1920s torch singer Annette Hanshaw. And you ran into problems with copyright because you wanted to use those songs. Tell us that story.
Yeah, I just was going through the regular process of trying to clear the rights, just to make it legal. I wanted to comply with the law. Also, for any film to be broadcast or shown in cinemas or anything like that, you need papers that prove that you have permission to use those songs. So I had to actually approach all of these corporations well, first I had to have lawyers find out who owned all these songs, because it's not clear anymore. You know, there's no copyright registry, no functional copyright registry anymore. So it was an extraordinary amount of work on the part of the student attorneys at American University.
And the people who own the songs wanted to charge you, did charge you.
Well, they didn't even know that they owned the songs. They're not people. They're almost entirely just gigantic corporations that actually can't be bothered. The problem is that you call them up and ask for permission, and they cannot be bothered with little independents like me. So then I had to pay lawyers to talk to them, because and I was like losing all this money before it even got to how much do I have to pay. The transaction costs are incredible.
So by the way, this isn't about the recordings. This is about the actual compositions that Annette Hanshaw sang in the 1920s. It's the songs themselves that are owned or restricted this way.
Right. So Nina's movie is being distributed for free. Talk about the economics of free distribution.
I should add, though, it's being distributed for free and for money. Like, because I've cleared all of these things. Right. So there are, 2 American theatrical distributors. They charge for tickets. There are multiple DVD distributors. You can buy it on Amazon. So free there's Libra, and then there's gratis. And although you can download it for free and share it for free, you can also pay for it. And when people pay for it, they're actually paying for various services and tangible objects associated.
So who in the real world is paying for it, and why would they?
Well, I haven't met most of these people, and there are far too many of them for us to meet. I help Nina run an online store, which if you go to sitasingstheblues.com/store, you too can buy the movie. I had to say that. And there are thousands of them, literally thousands. And they buy the DVD. Interestingly, anyone could take the DVD from the internet, take the song, the film from the internet, put it on a DVD and sell it. People buy it from this store because when they do a search, it's the first one that comes up, because they want to get it in a way where they know that money is going to the filmmaker. And I know from talking to some of these customers that that's important to them. And Nina says, if you want to get my film on DVD, go here and purchase it. It'll be shipped to you. And between that and donations, just flat out donations from people who've seen the film, she's cleared more than $50,000 in the last year.
As part of her residency with your organization, Nina is producing short videos called Minute Meme. Let's take a look at a couple of them. This one is called All Creative Work is Derivative. This is an excerpt. That's pretty original for a work called All Creative Work is Derivative. What were you trying to say?
I was trying to say all creative work builds on what came before. And it's funny how the more I do things like that, the more original people praise me as. Like with Sita Sings the Blues, they're like, oh, wow, the Ramayana and old blues and animation. It's like, that's pure remix. I would actually think that somebody could accuse me of being incredibly unoriginal with that last film, because why didn't I make my own sculptures? I was stealing these old sculptures by other people because I was lazy.
So let's look at another minute meme called "Copyright is not theft," and you're calling this
copying is not theft.
Copying.
Copyright is theft.
And censorship, according to his T-shirt.
Absolutely.
Copying is not theft, and you are calling it a draft because it has a placeholder soundtrack. You're asking musicians and sound designers to make their own versions with their own soundtracks. So let's take a look.
Copying is not theft. Stealing a thing leaves one less left. Copying it makes one thing more. That's what copying's for. Copying is not theft. If I copy yours, you have it too. One for me and one for you. That's what copies can do. If I steal your bicycle, you have to take the bus. But if I just copy it, there's one for each of us. Making more of a thing. That is what we call copying, sharing ideas with everyone. That's why copying is fun.
Okay, so is anybody taking you up on it? You should have seen them singing along during the video. But has anybody submitted a soundtrack yet?
Yeah, lots of people have submitted soundtracks.
We've got some pretty good ones.
Yeah, the best one being the punk version.
Yeah, this guy added new frames to the video. He went all out. Yeah,
but isn't that a simplistic and maybe overly simplistic message? If you make a copy of somebody's bicycle rather than steal it, you know, obviously you both have a bicycle. But if you make a copy of somebody's movie rather than buy it, then the filmmaker is out that royalty or whatever.
I don't actually think it's an overly simplistic message. I think that using words like piracy and theft to describe the sharing of culture is an overly simplistic message, and it's one that we've been hearing for a long time. It is true that some copying may lead to lost sales, but copyright is a policy decision. There's nobody who has a particular right to a particular business model. And just because some people today have a monopoly on the distribution of certain works, like a filmmaker might have a monopoly on distributing a certain movie, it doesn't mean that that's how things have to be arranged. And now we've got this worldwide, zero-cost, perfect copying machine. It gets the bits right every time. You know, in this world, there's no such thing as a counterfeit song or a counterfeit book. There never was, right? This anti-counterfeiting trade agreement is badly misnamed. It's not persuasive to me to say, just because we have this business model that these monopolies should be here for all time, when it's costing us more and more because we can't use the internet, we can't use this copying machine, we have people being kicked off it if they share songs. I mean, that's just insane.
But I have a friend, for example, who is an author and has sold several thousand copies, about 15,000 copies of a book. Some of the copies have been purchased on college campuses. And this author is afraid that people are just going to make copies of the book and start distributing them for free and sharing them. And this is a small author who's, you know, eking out a living. Is there no basis to that fear?
Can I speak to this?
Sure, yeah.
The more people share Sita Sings the Blues, you know, I'm a small author, a small artist, or at least I was. The more people share it, the more people buy it. It's really good for works to be shared. It's prohibiting the sharing of a work is like it's like putting pesticide on a seed or something. I don't really understand why people aren't seeing this.
So wait a minute. So you want college students to be able to just copy my friend's book, not buy copies, and distribute it, and if it spreads as a free meme, so be it.
Actually, I don't want anything one way or the other with your friend's book.
Yes.
But I will say that as an artist who cares about my work, I see only benefits coming from people sharing my work. The more they share it, the more money comes to me. Sharing a work does not represent a lost sale. That's a big myth that's propagated by
and also I am
industries.
also a small author. To be fair, I've never made a living strictly from authoring, but I've made a significant amount of money. It made a difference at that time in my life. Both of my books are available online under open licenses. They're free licenses. Anybody can share them. I've made some money from them, around $15,000 total. And the nicer thing that's happened than the money is that they have been widely translated into more languages than most books get translated in.
But it's going to work for some, and it's not going to work for others, right?
So, but here's the question.
The free culture
well,
model.
But that's the copyright model as well. Most artists I know don't get any benefit out of copyright. I certainly didn't.
Yeah,
in fact, most academic authors do terribly with the copyright system. The publisher doesn't pay them anything. The publisher charges huge amounts that prohibit libraries from sharing the work so they can't be cited. It's insane.
So is there a middle ground, or do you argue that everything should be free?
This search for middle grounds and balance is laudable in most things, and I normally go for it myself. But in this case, we have a system that tells people, don't share information, don't share culture, and when you do, the long arm of the law is going to come and tell you not to. I don't think that the middle ground there is, okay, we'll have a little censorship and that'll be okay. I think the right answer is we stop censoring.
Having to purchase a copy of something that I created is censorship, in your opinion?
Telling somebody, for example, if I write a book and you want to translate it, into some language you know, and you're told, sorry, you can't do that. Or you can do it in the privacy of your home, but you're not allowed to distribute the translation, which is what the law currently is. That's absolutely censorship.
Yeah,
and why is my niche book translated into 8 languages when much better and much more popular books are not? That's crazy.
Yeah, and also, you totally have right to sell copies of your book, and you should have a monopoly on your copies. You make them, you know, that's property, that's tangible property.
And everybody else should totally have the right to make copies of my book too and give them away.
Yeah.
Well, or sell them. But what's interesting is in this argument, people seem to forget that there is no economic incentive to do that. When Sita Sings the Blues is already available, you know, people say to me, you mean I could make copies of it and sell them? It's like, yeah, are you going to? Do you know that that costs money? Do you know that distributing it that way costs a lot of money?
But like music now, I mean, this is an old conversation. We've been having it since Napster in the 1990s, right? The incentive is at the level of the individual. And many, many individuals who want to receive one free copy and ask their friend, oh, you have a copy of that? Make me a copy. And then each one, in some cases, is a nickel, a dime, a dollar out of the author's pocket.
And then you become famous among all these people and you get more money. I mean, this is exactly what Sita disproves. The more people share the film, the more people line up to buy cinema tickets. I mean, it was just a symphony space, and there was like this big, huge line in there for a film that's been free for almost a year now.
And the benefits to me of my book being widely available and widely cited in its field, because it's free on the net, have been tremendous. They've been economic benefits aside from royalties. To me.
Sita Sings the Blues for free at?
SitaSingsTheBlues.com.
Or for purchase?
Anywhere.
Anywhere.
Well, just go to SitaSingsTheBlues.com and there's a link to the store.
Right.
Yeah, there's our store. You can also get it on Amazon from other distributors. But the ones on our store, I get a bigger percentage of the profits.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up next, a revolution in art made possible by the web. Who needs the Medicis? It's Brian Lehrer Live.
Ma, guess what? I went back to college. No, I didn't quit my job. I'm finishing my degree with a CUNY Online Bachelor's in Business. I interact online with real City University of New York faculty on a schedule that fits my busy life. Ma, you should look who's teaching at CUNY. And it all leads to a high-quality Bachelor of Science degree in business. I can attend class anywhere, anytime. Yes, Mom, even at your house Friday night for dinner.
The CUNY Online Baccalaureate. Get back to business.
Say, are you worried about H1N1? You know, swine flu. Well, CUNY says protect yourself from hidden horrors. Here's how. After touching public surfaces, don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth. Flu is also spread when infected people cough at you. Sneeze into a tissue, never your bare hands. Or use your elbow. Wash often with soap and water. Or use an alcohol-based hand cleanser. There are 2 kinds of flu shots this season. Consult your doctor or healthcare provider on the regular and H1N1 vaccinations. Most importantly, if you feel sick and have fever, stay home. Yes, a little caution goes a long way.
For more information, visit our website, cuny.edu, and click on H1N1 Update.
This is Brian Lehrer Live, where web video meets the issues. This, in a nutshell, is the revolution in art that the internet offers. A world where painters wouldn't need patrons to survive, and the people could afford great art. We're not there yet, but one website is smashing the barriers to art collecting. It's an online gallery that sells limited editions at prices way below what you would expect to pay for an original work. The smallest size print is available in editions of 200 for $20 each. That's where the site got its name, 20 by 200. Its slogan, art for everyone. Here to tell us about 20 by 200 is founder and CEO Jen Beckman, and 20 by 200's Director of Business Development, Jonathan Melber. Welcome, both of you. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Tell us about the idea of this. This just isn't a supermarket for art. It's highly structured, and we're going to look at some images in just a second from the site, and you can talk through how it works. In fact, let's just bring up an image. Let's bring up an image over there and talk through what we're looking at and what it represents.
So that is the newsletter, which is the way that most people connect with the site for the first time. I introduce, each time we release an edition, I introduce it and talk about the artist and the work and contextualize it, both in terms of the art world at large, but also how I know the artist and why I connected with the work myself. And it's always very informal and kind of human, which is we try to make everybody feel like they can talk about art without having to know too much, just what you think is
And what's the business model of 20 by 200?
Well, we follow the model of the art world in the sense that we split everything with the artist. So the traditional art world split is 50-50, and we do that as well. And it's a newsletter model in the sense that we have subscribers who are very active, and twice a week we release a new edition, a new image or two from one of our the many artists that we work with.
So this is on a set schedule.
Yes.
That you release new works of art.
Right. And that way people know what they anticipate it, they know what to expect. We work with a whole range of artists, and sometimes with the better known artists, people will set their clocks ahead of time because we give them a heads up the day before.
To be one of the 200.
Yeah.
Let's see another slide. Can we go on to another so that we can see another example? Or in the meantime, you could tell us about this one and what it is.
This is work from a photographer named Kent Rogowski, who I've worked with for several years. I also have an art gallery on Spring Street between Elizabeth and Bowery, and 20 by 200 was an outgrowth of my experiences there, of wanting more people like me to start collecting. And Kent has had a solo show at the gallery and has had several editions on the site. So, you know, he, and those are all the editions that he's done with us. And again, kind of going back to the business model, we know that we can find 200 people who are interested in the art at any given time, so we can sell them for $20 each. And we also know that there are going to be people who are excited about supporting an artist or really love the work, so we also offer editions at larger sizes as well, so that people can kind of work their way up the ladder as they get more confident.
How do you choose your artists?
Well, I have sort of a big network through the gallery. I've had the gallery for almost 7 years now, and we do a photo competition, which is where I connect with a lot of photographers. But then some of my artists I've found in museums, at art fairs. I find a lot of artists on the internet, which makes me different than a lot of other gallerists. But it's actually kind of a favorite of mine is to discover someone online and make their editions available to everyone who's just been kind of collecting the images.
And you've got well-known as well as emerging artists on the site. For example, I think you have some works, a couple of works by William Wegman available right now. Why would somebody that well-known sell works for $20 through you?
Well, the better-known artists who work with us, they really believe in what we're doing. They believe in the mission, which is making art more accessible to more people. And I mean, William Wegman in particular was really excited that people who have loved his work for years and years but have been essentially priced out of the market are able to now collect original works of art by him. And so
and also, I would say that going back to your example of the Medicis, there's something actually kind of amazing about making a significant amount of money from hundreds of people rather than from one individual. And that, I believe that that's actually something that's really empowering for the artists and makes them less dependent upon a system that's quite small, you know, and I've existed in that system for a long time, but I believe that, you know, they can coexist together. And so for Wegman or for the Starn twins, who we've worked with as well, it's this idea that a lot of people get to own their work who have never been able to before, but also it's a much more distributed base of support.
What are we looking at right now? Let's bring up this next slide.
This is Christian Schez. He is another artist who I've worked with pretty widely, who's had a gallery exhibition, and it's actually an interesting play on the earlier conversations that were happening on the show this evening of the editions that we showed in the gallery were quite expensive, and the fact that we have $50 prints available and $500 prints available on the website have done nothing to diminish the interest in the gallery prints. In fact, it's only sort of, again, broadened the audience for the work, and when the show was up, the fact that we released editions that were for $50 at the same time that we were releasing these much more expensive editions, it only increased the amount of interest that people had in the work.
And let's bring up another slide. Let's see one more. You want to tell us about this, Jonathan? And why 20 by 200? Why not 50 by 500 or 30 by 300?
Well, actually, we do 50 by 500 as well.
Okay.
So, and 500 by 50, and there's several different combinations that we work with. This is an artist named George Colombo, who is best known now for the New Yorker covers that he's done. You might recognize the style. He's done 3 of them, and the New Yorker actually discovered him because of 20 by 200, because someone at the New Yorker saw his work on our site, and he has actually now been featured by Steve Jobs in the iPad announcement because he uses brushes to draw these on his iPhone.
Wow, how about that? So now, via Skype, let's bring in artist Claire Grill. Her work is on 20 by 200. She depends on the web to make her known and to make her rent. Hi, Claire. Welcome to the program.
Hi.
So how'd you get hooked up with 20 by 200?
They contacted me about a year ago. I believe after they had sent out a request to their Twitter followers. Yay, internet. And some of their followers had recommended that they produce prints of my work, so here we are.
Here we go. Do you find that your work is more well known now as a result of being on 20 by 200?
I would have to say, yeah. I have a show up right now, my first solo show at New York, or at Jen Beckman's gallery in New York. And I've certainly gotten a lot of email from strangers, which is really exciting.
And maybe a little scary. Let's show a few examples of your work, which we have. Let's go to the first one. Claire, can you describe this?
Sure. This is a painting called Assignment. A brief overview, I should mention, a lot of my work is about the beliefs and stories and traditions that are handed down to us and how they become complicated and changed through the years. This piece is about art assignments when you're little and how it's a strange thing to be assigned to be creative, and how the creative act really is in the mark making, not in the picture.
Let's go to the next picture. So
Great.
If that one's assignment, what's this? Do we have it yet? Cake.
Cake. This is called Cake. This is about wishing and believing.
As cake is. It looks very fattening, so we better move on to one more slide of yours, which I believe is called Overachievers.
That's right. This is called The Overachievers. And this is a painting of kids working really hard at making something.
And there you go. Okay. So what else do you do to distribute your work?
Well, I have gathered a network of people interested in my work just through the years. I've been pretty lucky to have had some people blog about my work, which I think is one of the ways that Jen learned about me. And yeah, and just through my artist friends. I went to graduate school at Pratt Institute and have a really great network of artist friends here in New York.
So, Jen, this is using the web for distribution of art.
Yes.
As well as for a business model.
Yes. And I mean, actually, the last painting that she showed, Overachievers, that was also the postcard image for the show when it opened. And someone bought the original painting after seeing the print released as an edition through the mailing list. So again, it's that model of sort of trickle up instead of trickle down.
And Jonathan, you wrote a book, co-wrote a book, which came out last year from the Free Press, called Art/Work, Everything You Need to Know and Do as You Pursue Your Art Career. How does 20 by 200 relate to the themes of your book?
Well, I mean, the same things that motivated me to write the book, which were essentially caring about artists and wanting to do something that would help artists out and provide information for them that is hard to find and not always getting to artists in the way it should. The same motivation drove me to want to work with Jen, because I really believe in what we're doing, and the whole mission of the company, it's not just making art available to everyone, it's supporting artists as we do it. And a lot of similar...
Well, I was just going to ask, because we only have 30 seconds left. Do you have a sense of who your customers are? Are you really spreading art to the people?
I have to say, it's amazing. Actually, like, we have events and people. What I love about it is it's not. I say it's not art for everyone else. It really is art for everyone. So when you go to an event of art collectors, it's a lot of people who say to me, "I never thought that I'd be able to collect art before." And then it's also people who've been collectors for years who are also participating and excited about the breadth that they get to see on the site.
Well, it's great stuff. Good luck to all of you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
And that's it for this week's show. We're here live Wednesday nights at 7:30 or anytime online at brianlehrer.tv. Next week, the web as sweatshop. And tune in to my daily radio show, 10 a.m. on WNYC. Tomorrow morning, life in the New York suburbs, politics too. That's 10 a.m. on WNYC 93.9 FM and AM 820. Have a great night.